And that's probably true. I think that even though we see that some relief with the gas prices dropping, and people think everything's okay all of a sudden, but it still isn't. There are still people out there struggling. They may be getting by paycheck to paycheck, all of a sudden have a sudden car breakdown or a medical bill, and they're still struggling for food. So we're here to make sure that doesn't happen.
So the task force will do what to try and change that?
Well, we have a series of activities that they will put together for this spring, ones we've done in the past, to just monitor them, get them up, and raise awareness. Good example, first one is the Food Bank Challenge, which will run the month of March and April. It took place with the old Feinstein Challenge, was discontinued actually in 2013. But basically, it's anybody donates to the food bank on behalf of their pantry or soup kitchen that is a member of the food bank. The food bank will match that donation by 10% those 2 months. Sponsored by our board. I think it's very generous. I think last year was very successful. And it's a good way for the pantries and soup kitchens to raise enough money pretty much to cover their food for the whole year, any expenses they have to buy the food. So it's a big program to get behind. That's probably our biggest thing rolling into the spring.
Okay, and so to help that along, someone could do what? Make a monetary donation? Does that help push that along?
Correct. The pantries themselves will be doing the fundraising as well, as we send some mailings out next week, actually. And it'll be in the newspaper at some point as well with an article. Just they can make a monetary donation, either all made to the food bank. They can either do it directly to us or through the pantry or soup kitchen that is a member of the pantry, of the soup, or the food bank rather. Okay. So anyway, it gets to us in those 2 months from that pantry or soup kitchen, and make sure you put that on the memo what it's for, so we know. We have 325 agencies when we get the right one credit. But it's real valuable for them those 2 months to go out and find ways to even take their money and make it go farther.
All right, and we'll try and understand how that network comes together, too, in just a second with Keith Williamson of the Food Bank of South Central Michigan, 8:15 WBCK Friday. Keith Williamson's here from the Food Bank of South Central Michigan. We're talking about something called the Food Raiser Task Force, and this is a group of community stakeholders that have gotten together to try and help advance the awareness of hunger in our community. And you talked about one way they're doing that. We'll talk about some more in a second. But you made a reference, Keith, to the idea that you have a network of distribution points, I guess, where your food in the food bank goes. So do you presume then that, should we presume that most entities out there that are helping to feed the hungry are part of your network?
Chances are they are, but it doesn't hurt to ask them.
Okay.
Sometimes they may not know, especially if they're new. They may not know of the food bank. So by asking them, they can raise some interest, and they can simply contact the food bank to become part of the network. All they need to be is a 501c3 or be sponsored by a 501c3. It could be a pantry down the street sponsored by the church up the street, and that's fine. There's certain course requirements you have to meet as far as food safety and those kind of things. But then once we get them all set up, they can get food through the food bank.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of hurdle that has to be cleared to make that happen.
Not much, no. We just want to make sure that they're part of the network. We want to make sure, of course, they're not competing with someone right next door. Right. We want to make sure that their times are complementary to the ones around them. So we're trying to serve people more than would be served normally if they were a new entity.
Makes sense. Try not to redouble the efforts or duplicate the efforts at the same time. So once they do become part of your network, what does that mean for you? You have another location to try and supply, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It puts a little more pressure on us to try to find food, but that's fine. We like that kind of pressure. But it just gives us another avenue to reach people, and that's the whole point is especially if it's an area where we don't have a pantry or soup kitchen, we're always looking for what they call food deserts, places where the healthy food is not available to people at a reasonable cost. Those are the kind of communities we want to get into to bring more healthy foods to people.
Sure. So that does put pressure on you, but that also means you're getting more of your mission accomplished.
Absolutely. We like those challenges. Finding food is what we're all about.
All right. So what else is on the task force list?
There's several activities coming up this spring. A lot of them don't have dates yet, but there's a shred day coming up again, which we have every year, right around Earth Day somewhere.
Boy,
that's in April.
That is a great thing. There was one last year that we publicized at a given point. If you have paper, and who doesn't, that needs to be shredded, one page at a time through your home shredder takes a lot more time than showing up and putting it through a shred truck, and you just watch this happen in a second or two.
Exactly. Grinds a whole box up quickly.
Yeah. And why not couple that with an event like a food drive?
Absolutely.
Smart idea.
We can take, monetary funds or food at the time. Usually I'm at those events. I'm the one collecting it, so you get a chance to stop by and say hi to me and meet me and maybe talk more about the mission if you have questions.
All right. What other ideas have they come up with?
Of course, your favorite one is the supermarket sweep, which is coming up in April.
Right. I better start working out now.
That event will be at the Family Fair again on Columbia, and it's a race through the store to gather groceries on a particular list, and usually it's a lot of the media people competing. We're trying to look for ways we can expand that, maybe get some other groups in there as well. So
now I have a mixed reaction to that. One is great, more food in the baskets for you. The second one is, how am I going to get by all those people in the aisleway?
Usually it's on a day where they're kind of slow, so it's not usually that much of a challenge. But we do warn everybody, it's just 5 minutes of chaos.
Yes, that's right. And you do have to keep one hand on the basket. So you have your team, right? And you're going through the store in a limited amount of time, grabbing the designated items and throwing them in the cart. Now, you've done a nice job of marking those on the shelves and things.
To make it easy.
We do get a chance to go through and, see where those things are ahead of time. But you have to keep one hand on the basket and be grabbing with the other hand. And if you can imagine another team coming the opposite way in that aisle, we got to stretch it, make room, and anyway, it's exciting.
Yes,
like you said,
displays become a problem.
Yep, right. That's right. So the Pillsbury Doughboy cardboard cutout has to be moved out of the way or something. But you are accepting other teams that don't have to be media teams.
Correct. We're looking at ways we can expand that. That's part of the task force and discussion of that right now. How can we look at expanding that? Of course, we want to talk to the supermarket first.
Sure.
But my understanding in the past, prior to my getting here, at one point there was up to 20 teams doing this, and now we're down to 5 or 6. So I think they could grow again.
20. Wow. Maybe we'd have to be like snakes or something and just follow each other. I don't know. That'll be interesting. But the more teams, the better. So if somebody's hearing this and maybe they have an employee group they might like to participate in this, how do they reach you? Let's say that number right now.
Call the food bank. Be this way. 269-964-3663. Last 4 digits spell the word food. So it's easy to remember.
Okay. 964-FOOD.
Yep. Just call and ask for either Alicia Berry or Holly Cavender or Naomi Curtis. Any one of the 3 can help you. All
right. Or just say supermarket sweep. And they'll route you the right way.
Yep.
All right. We're back in a minute to talk more about this in just a second. 8:20. WBCK, Keith Williamson's here from the Food Bank of South Central Michigan. Nico just came in here and said, I want to do that supermarket sweep. You're in, pal. Put him right at the front of the cart.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We had a call from a postal worker who talked about had the post office as a place you can drop off non-perishable food items for the food bank, and that sort of leads us to our next point. The letter carriers are a big help.
Absolutely. In the month of May, we have the National Association of Letter Carriers Food Drive. It's the largest one-day food drive in the United States, done by the postal workers.
Wow. And we're all familiar with that. You get that notice in the mailbox about that, and they can give you a bag, don't they?
You put a bag in the Shopper's News.
That's it. Okay.
Sponsors pay for those bags for us, which is great.
Yeah, that's nice. So then you can just put your non-perishable stuff in there and out to the mailbox, and they'll collect it.
Absolutely. That'll be May, I believe it's May 14th. May 7th.
Okay. Good thing those mail trucks are sturdy, because you're going to have a lot in there besides the mail. What is considered non-perishable anyway? What are you really looking for?
Well, non-perishable will be something that's shelf-stable, first of all, something that has at least a several-month shelf life. We don't want something that's going to expire in a few days, because it's got to be processed and move out to the agency, so there's a few-day process getting it into the building, sorted, and back out. We look for dented cans, those kind of things, and expiration dates, of course.
Sure.
So we always advise people to try to stay away from glass jars, just because when you put glass jars in a barrel or in a bags and they bang together, sometimes they break, and then we lose more food than just that one item. So glass is something we want to try to avoid.
Okay.
But good things like boxed dinner mix, the hamburger helpers, those kind of things, or even spaghetti. You can get canned spaghetti sauce. Canned vegetables, canned fruits are a big one, and soups. Those are all good non-perishable items.
Okay. What about, they've done some fancy things with like tuna and stuff, we buy them in the pouches now and just open them up and they're ready to eat. Is that good for you?
That can be used as well, as long as that pouch is not punctured. And that's
Okay.
kind of a challenge, too, when you put them in a bag with a bunch of canned stuff. And many times we go through and sort this food, if it's open and exposed in any way, we throw it away.
All right. So this task force, this group of community stakeholders trying to help raise awareness on this, is this a temporary thing, or will you be forming this group regularly? What happens?
We usually do this every spring. So we just had our first meeting a couple of days ago, and then as the spring goes on, of course, the group will grow in size and more people will get involved. So if someone's interested in coming out and helping, definitely contact the food bank.
Okay. Now that task force, do you have certain members of certain industries that you'd like to have represented in that group?
Yeah, we're open to anybody.
Okay.
Anybody that has a passion for feeding hungry people and wants to help, we're open.
So here we are close to spring now. Is this a more challenging or less challenging time of year than most?
The entire year is challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, each season has its different challenges. The biggest part of the spring is that we're coming to the point where getting more and more of the fresh vegetables is a little tougher in the spring.
Yeah.
I mean, through the winter, we can still get some of the cold storage items like apples, potatoes, onions. But as we head into the spring, even that supply starts to dwindle down. So, and of course, we know summer is an abundant in fresh foods. So spring is kind of a challenge with fresh foods, but that's something we really can't raise in a food drive.
You have an ability to stretch that dollar, which was part of what we alluded to a moment ago. If you're an organization that does feed people who need it, and you are a member of the food bank network, then that looks good for people who might want to give you a grant, for example.
Oh, absolutely. I think even the agencies that are receiving grants nowadays, that's one of the questions they're always asked is, are they a member of the food bank? Because they know they can't stretch a dollar any more than they can through us.
How do you stretch it? Give us that statistic again. It's always interesting to hear it.
Every dollar we can provide approximately 6 meals to a family in need. And that's done just because of our network of 205 food banks across the United States, all the different manufacturers we work with. We can get entire semi-loads of food for just pennies on the dollar.
Boy, just let that sink in. I never tire of hearing that statistic. $1 is 6 meals?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's incredible. So, yes, why wouldn't you want to be part of that network if this is the business you're in? Because this could really make a difference. All right, so let's see. The next thing we want to make sure people are aware about is the supermarket sweep, of course. You want to be part of that. Make sure you make the call. Let's tell them the number one more time.
It's 269-964-FOOD or 3663.
All right. Let's stay in touch.
Will do.
All right. Keith Williamson, Food Bank, South Central Michigan. 820.